Have you been wondering if you're on the right path financially? Things seem like they're good, but how do you know for sure? Maybe you're looking for a sign of some kind. Well, I've got signs for you. We're going to talk about 4 different signs to look for that tell you you are slowly getting rich. Sign number 1, you practice mindful spending. This is so important. This is an early sign that you were on the path to success. It's impossible to build wealth and become financially independent at some point in your life if you don't practice mindful spending. This means that you spend less than you make. You have a budget, you track spending. You're saving for big financial goals, maybe a house or your kids' education, whatever you need to do in your life. And when your money is working for you, it's a great feeling. You're going to love it. You've mastered mindful spending, and that leads you right into sign number 2. And that's being able to say no to lifestyle creep, also known as lifestyle inflation, also known as keeping up with the Joneses, and in the age of social media, keeping up with the virtual Joneses. Once you can say no to getting new furniture or a new car every time you get a raise, that is when you really start to make traction. If you upgrade your car every time you get a raise, you will never get ahead. And it can be difficult because there's also peer pressure. Even when we're adults, we experience peer pressure, especially if you live in a nice neighborhood and you want to be sure you're keeping up. But you know what? Nobody cares what you're driving. Nobody cares what your house looks like. And honestly, why would you want to be friends with anyone who did care about those things? Once you focus on what you want to make out of this life, you're no longer going to fall for peer pressure. And while we're talking about lifestyle inflation, there's another type of inflation I want you to keep an eye on, but not for the reasons you're probably thinking. Let's look at sign number 3. Your income exceeds the rate of inflation every year, at least until you're ready to retire or become financially independent. When inflation is high, everything's more expensive. And that's because prices have gone up. Now, the Fed tries to keep inflation at 2%. It's failed miserably over the past couple of years, but in 2024, inflation started coming back down. I'm going to show you a handy little chart and how this impacts prices, which basically impacts your cost of living. Let's take a look. As you can see, on March 2024, the inflation rate was 3.2%. So that's a little over a year ago. When the inflation rate is 3.2%, that means prices increase at 3.2%. Now, let's jump ahead a year, March 2025, just last month. And this is the most current number right now. The inflation rate is down to 2.4% from a year ago. That is great. But look over at price increases. Prices still went up 2.4% because even when the inflation rate is low, prices are still going up and it's cumulative. And that's why when we had really high inflation a couple of years ago, it hit 9% at one point. When prices go up that much, they don't come back down unless something very unusual happens in the economy. So that's why things are still kind of high, even though inflation's down. As long as you have an income, whether you're self-employed or you like to work for companies, you need to be sure you have an income that exceeds inflation every year. Don't just meet inflation. You need to exceed it in order to keep your standard of living and also to be able to save for your own retirement. Planning for retirement is a long-term strategy. So be sure that you always get your worth. When it's time for a raise, go in there armed with the inflation rate and tell them what you need. And if you feel like you're underpaid, start looking around. You don't have to stay at one job your entire life. I mean, most people don't these days. I've worked for many different companies, and that has served me well. Because sometimes you're at a company for a long time and they start taking you for granted and you're not getting the raises you would be getting at another company or out on your own. Always be sure you're tracking your income, not just your spending, because it's where you can start to build wealth Now, let's go on to sign number 4. You can cover an emergency of at least $10,000 without freaking out. A $10,000 emergency fund is something to shoot for. The fact that you've got $10,000 in that account shows you've been working hard and you've been saving and that you were on the right path. Maybe you're at the beginning and you see one of these signs, but not the others. So pay attention and work intentionally to develop these other skills, and your cash flow will continue to improve. And the more that improves, the more you can start investing. And once you really get into the investment game, that's when you start to build wealth the most because you've got compound interest in your favor. Have you seen signs in your own life that you are slowly getting rich? Leave me a comment and let me know where you are in your financial journey. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.